What's up? I'm back with another video as part of the same series. I want to say that I think I might have figured out what my kung fu name is. Everyone should have. You should really know your kung fu name, because like you could be somewhere and someone could have to ask you for that. And my name is, I think it might be flying tangent, flying tangent style, because I fly off on tangents. But I'm getting back about to where I was coming from with the inspiration for this series, this present series, and is that I was saying that so I was talking a little bit about 18, this and that, and what if you appreciate the upbringing of a child as 18 years, roughly and arbitrarily speaking, is the legal designation of that. I've said that I think that there's different stages of development within that are very significant. Like one would be like a lot of your personality coming about by about the time you're 5, and then maybe your real sense of a right and wrong at about like maybe about 7 according to Osho, and then that would also come to that would somewhat be along the lines of when you'd be becoming literate. By the time you become 7 is when you're really having like a lot of facility around reading, and that's also according to a book I read is that some of our facility to conceive the experience of others, which actually informs compassion and mercy and empathy, that would actually be different than other iterations of human experience in all continents, including Europe, where the printing press is thought to have appeared. There's a difference in social outcomes and attitudes around like violence and atrocities that are different in post-literate societies. It's thought by one book. I can't recall what reference that is. If I can recall it, I'll put it in here. But that's not my original thought. But it was stated that a lot of things changed when people became literate, and the printing press prevailed, and also people began reading like novels. It changed things, so a lot of things for the better. And they say that before that you would have what would be called like feral human beings. That's human beings without like literacy or some of the conventions of what we appreciate as civilization. And that's not to say that civilization came about with the printing press, but you've had different iterations of civilization, and civilization itself may ebb and flow and have recrudescence, where you have probably ancient civilizations that were far more civil and profound than we are, and even what we rely on for civics, as they've taken a lot of civics out of the school system strategically, according to some thinkers, is that a lot of people being reared in school don't have an actual grasp, a real command of civics, and that actually informs the entire existence of society. I've said that a lot of people are like, yeah, man, I can't wait to get out of high school, man. But your ass is in high school your whole life, because everyone you come across was raised up in high school when they were at the formative point, and they reenact their training and their experiences constantly in the broader society through all ages of life. So we're still in high school all the time, and we're never getting civics in high school anymore. So we're also not getting civics in broad society, generally speaking, unless we're privy to or privileged to be put upon that. But according to like people who really have a command of civics, such as the eminent Grand Sheikh Tashriq Bey, the scholar, he has pointed out that what we have for civics, like in the United States, may be derived from the understanding of ancient people, their understanding particularly of the balances of nature, which are actual conduct and dealings and agreements with one another, actually fit within the balances of nature. Because you do a bad deal with someone, you do someone wrong, now they're out of doors, and now the elements are affecting their body differently than they would have if you would have dealt equitably with them. So you're actually dealing with someone, you're contracting with someone, your agreement with someone has an actual bearing on the elements, because they are yet part of the elements, part of nature. And even as tough as nature can be, some of that's actually what it takes to keep us alive. The punishment that the trees get in a storm, rain, sleet, snow. Like I live in a woodland wilderness of North America, and there's a lot of trees, a lot of beautiful trees, very green. If you didn't have some of the brutal winters that we have, this stuff would be rotten by now. There'd be all manner of disease without these winters that we have. So even the brutality of nature is still part of nature. And just because the elements can be rough doesn't mean that nature would put us out in the elements according to its own impetus and efficient cause. Nature would fashion us with reason to put together supplies and shelter in the fair weather so that we are protected in the harsh weather. But some of our dealings with each other actually F each other out of what can be amassed or prepared in the fair weather. So we're out in bad, hard times in the fair weather and the hard weather, with a lot of these fair weather people that do deals with us, that are, we should actually be calling them hard weather people, hard weather friends, hard weather deals is what they are. But that's still within the balance of nature, our conduct. That's an example, and that was understood by ancient people such as the Anasazi, also known as the Iroquois, according to Tajik Bay. So that's just to say that prior civilizations have been as advanced, and if not more advanced, if anything, than we are, both in terms of civics, but also in terms of technology. It can be argued by people like Tajik Bay, and that some of your museums that exist, that are frequented by these very well-to-do people of such wealth and stature that we can't conceive it generally, would have interest in things like these museums. And according to Tajik Bay, what we see on the surface is more so of the presentation of the museum that allows it to be, that allows us to not think, to not question how much resource would be spent in preserving the museum. So it's almost like when you see different stuff, cool stuff going on with museums, that's like the front of what allows the museum to get its support that it needs. But the real work of the museum is actually to conceal and manage the artifacts, the real technology that has existed that would confound our present paradigm and actually change things socially if we understood what some of these museums understand, according to Tajik Bay. But that's not my hill to die on. I was saying that but things have always been we've always had civilization, but it comes in ebb and flows, and you could maybe say we're now at a worse ebb of civilization than, if anything, than before. But Because I'm laying down, I can't think about it as clearly as I normally would, but I'm trying to get charged with this one, just to keep it all the way real. But um uh um but but I guess what I can recall where I was going is that I was trying to say that within also, but you have different, but a lot of things change with literacy. And so before we had literacy, you would have humans that would be more feral, that's more brutal, like almost as brutal as any animal, like chimpanzees and stuff, is human beings without some of the things like literacy and civics that we have. And that would come about the age of like 7 for a human being. And then you get to other ages, like some of the realities of like middle school, adolescence, where you have some of the actual blessings of being a child, but you also have some of the interests and the propensities of being more mature that converge at adolescence, that make the experience of like middle school very profound and sometimes very beautiful, or maybe very brutal for people. And then different parts of high school are very formative also. I somehow think that like 11th grade is more formative than people would think, because you come into high school and you're a little bit wide-eyed, and you even have more confidence your earlier high school, but then you're up in high school for 2 and 3 years, and you kind of get disabused of some of your naivety, and you really get into the politics of high school deeper than when you first came in. So when you're in, like, say like 11th grade, you're in the thick of it because you're now really up in there and acculturated to it, and you feel some of the brunt of it by like 11th grade. But then like 12th grade, you're now having like the first like hint of what you would think of as freedom, but I say it's still high school when you get out the door. But then it's different now at that age, but it's all very profound and formative. So I just want to say that nothing's more or less formative. But the only reason I reference that is because if you take my development over 18 years, my development was exactly for the exact almost to the day, the last 4 years of the 80s, the exact 10 years of the 90s, and the first 4 years of the 2000s, or the aughts, or the knots, that's called. So I'm truly like centered right there in the 90s. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how my experience has been about experiencing the 90s, but then also some of the generations that would have been with me leading up into the 90s, and the generations that I've seen after the 90s from that perspective, and how that has to do with with speaking and talking, and like attitudes about like what's cool about communication, is the premise of this series, is where I was leading up to. And that's the only reason I was talking about 18 anything, is just to say that I'm squarely from the 90s, and I wanted to talk about that experience.